In this recording I'm going to look at abstract methods. I'll show you what they are, how we use them and where you'll use them. And for a bit of a change I'm going to demonstrate using some mathematics and some geometry. Before I get into that, let me inform you that I record in high resolution, so don't watch on a blurry screen, choose high def if that works for you. Would you like to join a growing group of PHP developers and take your skills to a new level? If that sounds like you, all you need to do is subscribe, click notifications and welcome. I'll start things off in the chapter 3 folder by creating a new class, and this is going to be an abstract class and it's called 3-dimensional shape, and this is purposefully designed to be extended by concrete implementations, and the examples I'm going to use in this recording are a cylinder and a sphere. So you won't instantiate a 3-dimensional shape class because it means nothing, but you would instantiate a child class, a more concrete version such as the sphere and the cylinder. Now I'm adding a volume method here, and this is a method for calculating volume. So if you think about the different shapes that we're going to use, the calculation is going to be different for each one. And because the calculation is going to be different for each one, I can't put the code in this 3-dimensional shape parent. But what I can do is make the function abstract, and that means that each child of the 3-dimensional shape must implement a volume method. And you'll notice that I'm removing the body here. We only define the name, visibility and params for abstract methods. The body isn't needed because this is a contract which is saying if you extend this class you must implement this method. So let's do that now. In the chapter 3 folder I've created a class called cylinder, and that extends 3-dimensional shape. The red squiggly line is PHP Storm telling me that I must implement a volume method in this class, and it's in this method that I'll define the body. And one thing to note is that the signature, i.e. the parameters and return type, must match those of the abstract method in the parent. So let's go over to Google and find out how to calculate the volume of a cylinder. So it's going to be pi multiplied by radius squared multiplied by height. That's a good candidate for a doc block, so you can explain to other developers how you're calculating this. PHP has built-in functions which will help us with pi and radius squared. The dimensions is going to be an associative array because it's going to be different for each kind of shape, so I think an array is probably the easiest way to do this. So it'll have a radius key and it will also need a height key. So pi multiplied by dimensions radius squared multiplied by dimensions height. Let's require once our 3-dimensional shape.php file, and then we're going to need a file where we can go and test this out. So I'm creating just a standard PHP file called abstract methods in the same chapter 3 folder, bit of HTML, change the title to abstract methods, and then I need to require the cylinder.php file, and I'm going to create a new cylinder. Cylinder equals new cylinder, and I'm thinking we can actually improve our design here by passing in the dimensions to the constructor. When you make this kind of improvement, it's called refactoring. So we're not going to change how the code behaves, we're just going to make it more logical. And we're going to do that by putting a construct method in the 3-dimensional shape abstract class. That will take the dimensions array, and then we'll create a dimensions property on the class. And so in our methods, instead of passing in the dimensions array, we'll just be able to say this dimensions. And this will make it mandatory to pass a dimensions array whenever you create a new shape or 3-dimensional shape of any kind. So we can remove the dimensions argument from the methods. In the calculation itself, I'm replacing the dimensions variable with the dimensions property, and I'll do that for both radius and height. And then also in the doc block I'll remove this param here, and let's go and pass in an array to our constructor. So I'll say radius equals 5, and for the height I'll call that 10. So I think it makes quite good sense to pass in these dimensions when we create the object itself. Let's now calculate the volume, and all we need to do is just call cylinder volume. Now what I'm going to do is print it out using print_r, and I'll just go over to the browser and see what we get. So I'll append the file name onto the end of the URL, and that doesn't look right. What have I done there? Let's go back to the file. Yep, needs to say PHP. Okay, back over to the browser, refresh. Okay, we have a number 785.398 blah blah blah. I've no idea if that's right, but I know someone who does. I'll put my dimensions into this Google helper here and hopefully I'll get a similar number, 785.4. That's obviously been rounded, but it's good enough for me, 785.39. Okay, so your chance to have a go should you accept the challenge. Here are the steps. Create a sphere class to extend the three-dimensional shape abstract class. Add the mandatory volume method to calculate the volume of a sphere and return that value. Add a new sphere object to the abstract methods.php file and call the volume method on it, and then all you need to do is print out the result in the browser. So here's how you do it. Have a go at it. Class sphere extends three-dimensional shape, and I've got that squiggly line because it's mandatory to implement this volume method, and so I need to figure out how to calculate the volume of a sphere. So over to Google, and Google tells me that it's 4 divided by 3 multiplied by pi multiplied by the radius cubed. So let's add that to our volume method. Return 4 divided by 3 multiplied by pi, and then you multiply that by radius to the power 3, which we can do using this power function. And on the dimensions property we will have an array which contains a radius key. So we assign the dimensions property in the three-dimensional shape constructor, and when we create a sphere we'll just need to remember that we'll need a radius key for the array. In my sphere file I've required the three-dimensional shape.php file. Now in the abstract methods file I require sphere.php, and I need to create a new sphere, and it's in the constructor where I set this radius, and we'll stick with 5. And then all I need to do is call the volume method on sphere. So sphere volume equals sphere volume, and I just have to print that out and then go and check my work in the browser. So we'll go over there now and we'll get 523.59. Let's go and check this with Google's calculator and see if that will give us the same value. Put 5 in there. Okay, 523.6. That's close enough. So I'm going to finish off with a couple of things. One of those will be type hinting, where we tell PHP what type of value to expect. And I want to demonstrate something else to you as well. So as you can see, our number of dimensions varies for each of these shapes. For certain types of shapes, such as cubes, cuboids, the number of dimensions will be fixed, i.e. length, height, width. So I'm going to introduce an extra level of inheritance. So my sphere, my cylinder, will now inherit from a non-cuboid shape class, which inherits from the three-dimensional shape. And the reason that I'm doing this is to show you in what circumstances you can be exempt from having to implement the abstract methods. Now this non-cuboid shape, much like its parent three-dimensional shape, it's not something that you would instantiate. It's an abstract notional class. So I'm going to make this abstract, and in doing that it means that the non-cuboid shape does not need to implement the volume method. That responsibility will get passed down the chain to the child classes of the non-cuboid shape. So I'll require once the three-dimensional shape.php file, go over to cylinder. I'm going to change this so it extends non-cuboid shape. I'll change my require over to sphere, do exactly the same thing. Sphere extends non-cuboid shape, need to change the require once to non-cuboid shape also. And so let's go and run the code. Nothing breaks, exactly the same behavior. That was the sphere. We need to check the cylinder volume also, so I'll move that up there, change that to cylinder. Excellent, so that's passing it as well. No change in behavior, nothing breaks. So let me just clarify that rule. If a class extends the three-dimensional shape, then it must either implement the volume method or also declare itself abstract. Okay, type hints. So this is a type hinted argument. This is a type hinted return. When I type hint array in my method signature like this, what it's saying is that whatever gets passed in must be an array. So I'm going to change this to an integer, and then we'll go and run this in the browser and see what happens. So there you go. Argument 1 past three-dimensional shape construct must be of type array integer given. So that's pretty good. It's another thing which protects our application, and it means that we don't have to do checks to ensure we're getting past the right values, because PHP is doing it for us. So I'll return this to how it was, and we'll go and have a look at the other one, which was type hinted returns. So over in our sphere class, we said that the volume method must return a float. Let's comment that out and return a string. Any string will do. I think the value was 5 point something if I can remember rightly, so I'll just return a string 5ish. Over to the browser, refresh. Okay, return value of sphere volume must be of the type float, and a string was returned. So I'll tidy this up. If you do have any questions about any of the stuff that I've covered in this one, then please post them in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you, and I do read them all. If you've enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a like, and don't hesitate to share if you want to help others like yourself. Help each other out. That's what this channel is all about. And if you want YouTube to show you more of my content, all you need to do is subscribe and click the little notification icon. I release new material at least 2 times a week, and details of my schedule can be found on the discussion tab of my YouTube channel homepage.